Aliko Dangote has been Africa's richest man for over a decade, but 3 young entrepreneurs are building empires that could actually take his crown. They're in tech, finance, and energy, and the moves they're making right now are insane. This is who they are and why Dangote should be watching his back. For years, Aliko Dangote has been untouchable. The man is worth over $13 billion. He controls cement, sugar, salt, and now he's building the biggest oil refinery in Africa. He's basically a one-man economy. When people think of African wealth and business success, they think of Dangote. He's the benchmark, the goal, the guy everyone wants to be. But here's what most people don't realize. Dangote built his empire in traditional industries using traditional methods. Cement and sugar are great businesses, but they're old economy. They're slow. They require massive capital and government connections. The new generation of African entrepreneurs are playing a completely different game. They're building in tech and digital services where you can scale faster, reach more people, and create wealth at speeds that Dangote's generation never imagined. So, who are these 3 young entrepreneurs that could actually challenge Dangote's throne? Let's break them down one by one, starting with the most obvious candidate. Number 1 is Shola Akinlade, the co-founder and CEO of Paystack. Now, if you don't know Paystack, let me bring you up to speed real quick. Paystack is a payment processing company that makes it easy for African businesses to accept payments online. Think of it like the African version of Stripe. Before Paystack, if you wanted to accept payments on your website in Nigeria or Ghana, it was a nightmare. The systems were clunky, expensive, and didn't work half the time. Shola and his co-founder Ezra Olubi saw this problem and decided to fix it. They built Paystack in 2015, and within 5 years, Stripe bought them for over $200 million. That's the biggest acquisition of a Nigerian tech startup ever. But here's why Shola is a threat to Dangote's position. That $200 million exit was just the beginning. Shola is still running Paystack under Stripe, and the company is growing like crazy across Africa. More importantly, Shola represents a new model of wealth creation. Dangote needed decades and billions in loans to build his empire. Shola built a company worth hundreds of millions in just 5 years with venture capital and smart technology, and he's still in his 30s. If Paystack continues growing at this rate and Shola eventually takes it public or has another major exit, we could be looking at Africa's first tech billionaire. And unlike Dangote's cement and sugar, Paystack's model can scale across the entire continent without needing to build physical factories in every country. Number 2 is Sim Shagaya. Now, Sim is a bit older than the other 2 on this list, but he's still part of the new generation of African entrepreneurs. Sim founded Konga, which was one of Nigeria's biggest e-commerce platforms. He eventually sold his stake and moved on to other ventures. But what makes Sim dangerous is that he's a serial entrepreneur who understands both tech and traditional business. After Konga, Sim launched uLesson, an education technology platform that's bringing quality education to millions of African students through their phones. Education is a massive market in Africa. Parents will spend their last money to educate their kids. If Sim can capture even a small percentage of that market, we're talking about $1 billion company. But that's not all. Sim also invests in other startups and has his hand in multiple pies. He's building a portfolio of companies rather than putting all his eggs in one basket like Dangote did. This diversified approach, combined with his track record of building successful companies, makes him someone to watch. He might not be worth billions yet, but the trajectory is there. And here's the thing about tech entrepreneurs like Sim, once they hit on one massive success, the wealth compounds faster than in traditional industries. Dangote took decades to become a billionaire. Tech entrepreneurs can do it in 10 years or less if they build the right product at the right time. Number 3, and this might be the most interesting one, is Amaechi Okobi. Now, Amaechi might not be a household name yet, but people in the African tech and finance space know exactly who he is. Amaechi is one of the top executives at Flutterwave, which is Africa's most valuable startup, worth over $3 billion. Flutterwave processes payments for thousands of businesses across Africa and beyond. We're talking about companies like Uber, Booking.com, and thousands of African businesses that rely on Flutterwave to handle their payments. Why is Amaechi on this list? Because he's positioned at one of the most strategic companies in African tech. If Flutterwave goes public, which many people expect will happen in the next few years, the early employees and executives are going to become incredibly wealthy. And Amaechi isn't just any employee. He's been instrumental in Flutterwave's growth and expansion. He understands the African market, he has the connections, and he has the expertise. After Flutterwave, whether through an IPO or acquisition, Amaechi could easily launch his own ventures with the capital and knowledge he's gained. He represents the new breed of African tech executives who are getting rich by being early employees at unicorn startups and then using that wealth to build their own empires. So why do I think these three could actually topple Dangote? It's not just about their current wealth, which obviously is nowhere near Dangote's 13 billion yet. It's about the trajectory and the business models they're operating in. Dangote's businesses are amazing, but they're limited by physical constraints. You can only build so many cement factories. You can only refine so much oil. There's a ceiling based on infrastructure and capital requirements. But tech and digital services, the ceiling is much, much higher. Paystack can process payments for every single business in Africa without needing to build a factory in each country. uLesson can teach millions of students without needing to build schools. Flutterwave can facilitate billions in transactions without needing physical bank branches. This scalability is what makes tech businesses so powerful, and that's why the next generation of African billionaires will likely come from tech, not cement. There's another factor too. Dangote is 66 years old. He's not going to be running his companies forever. At some point, there will be a succession plan, and history shows us that family businesses often struggle when they transition to the next generation. Meanwhile, Shola, Sim, and Amaechi are in their 30s and 40s. They have decades ahead of them to build, scale, and compound their wealth. Time is on their side. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying Dangote is done or that he's going to lose his wealth. The man is a legend and his companies are solid. What I'm saying is that the game is changing. The next wave of African wealth is being created in different industries using different methods, and these three entrepreneurs represent that new wave. There are lessons here for young African entrepreneurs watching this. First, you don't need to build in traditional industries to create massive wealth. Tech and digital services offer paths to wealth that are faster and more scalable than ever before. Second, execution matters more than the idea. All three of these entrepreneurs saw problems that needed solving, and they actually built solutions. They didn't just talk about it. They coded, they pitched investors, they hired teams, they dealt with regulations, they pushed through failures. Execution is everything. Third, and this is important, they didn't wait for perfect conditions. Shola built Paystack when Nigeria's tech ecosystem was nowhere near as developed as it is today. Sim launched Konga when e-commerce seemed impossible in Nigeria. They saw opportunities where others saw obstacles. That mindset is what separates entrepreneurs who succeed from those who just dream about it. The African business landscape is shifting. The old guard built their wealth in manufacturing, commodities, and banking. The new guard is building in tech, digital services, and innovative business models. Both are valid, both create jobs and drive economic growth. But if we're being honest about who will dominate the next 2 decades, my money is on the tech entrepreneurs. They're moving faster, scaling bigger, and operating in industries with higher growth potential. Aliko Dangote's position as Africa's richest man is safe for now, but Shola Akinlade, Sim Shagaya, and Amaechi Okobi are coming. They might not topple him next year or even in 5 years. But 10 years from now? 15 years from now? Don't be surprised if one of them is sitting at the top of the African wealth rankings. The crown is heavy. And eventually, every king must face challenges. These are Dangote's challenges, and they're just getting started. Subscribe for more stories about Africa's rising business titans.